Hi, and welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore. I am the founder of Food Truck Training Group on Facebook, co-owner with my beautiful wife, Melissa, of our own food truck. It's called Food Truck 101, and I'm the executive director of the National Street Food Vendors Association, which is a nonprofit dedicated to education, advocacy, and uplifting all food vendors. Today, I'm going to be talking about some little steps that will help you as far as being efficient with your prep work. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys I'm going to be in Orlando, Florida on November 12th and 13th. I'm going to be a part of the Food Truck Owners Expo. I'm going to be giving 3 classes. One is on writing a profitable menu, one is on marketing in the off-season, and one is about us as food vendors having to speak with a single voice so that we can make changes to make our industry much better. Again, that's November 12th and 13th of 2024. If you guys are interested in stopping by and seeing me, you can order your tickets today from ftoexpo.com. And when you do place that order, put in the code FTTG15 for a 15% discount. I want to thank Table Needs for sponsoring this episode of the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. Table Needs is a full-service POS system that's capable of handling a busy food truck cash, credit card, and reporting needs. Check out the link in the description for more information about Table Needs. So let's talk about how you can be the most efficient when you're doing prep on your food truck. And when I mean prep, I mean not only, slicing and dicing, but I'm talking about just getting the food prepared. So let's talk about something that some food truck owners have an adverse reaction to, and that is batch cooking. You can batch cook your food, and every food truck does it. Now, I'm sure there's somebody going, but Bill, I'm fresh made, don't batch cook anything. Okay, well, you're lying to yourself and you're lying to me. You're batch cooking something. May not be the main items that you send out of your food truck, but you are batch cooking something. A barbecue dude, they're batch cooking a whole bunch of stuff. Somebody that sells coleslaw or mac and cheese or green beans or mashed potatoes, they're batch cooking. Somebody that's cutting up lettuce for burgers or onions or tomatoes, they're batch cooking. All of those things are batch cooking, and you can do them without compromising quality. You have a line of 10 people and you're a burger truck. You probably can drop some burgers because you're going to sell them. You sell French fries, you got 10 people in line, you probably can drop some fries. You know you're going to sell them. That's batch cooking. It's anticipation cooking. You're anticipating somebody ordering it, so you drop it. So don't get wound up into the, I only cook fresh food. If you do, you're slow. And there's no other way of saying that. You've got to anticipate, cook, get ahead on food. You got to batch cook, and you got to have some type of holding procedure to keep the food hot the way you want it to be hot and in the quality that you want it to be served. Everything can be held. Everything. May not be able to be held long, but it can be held. And that little bit will make the difference in you having great speed of service or just being one of many trucks that just barely get people out. Here's a French word for you, mise en place or mise en place, depending upon who's saying it. If you watch any kind of shows on Food Network, you're going to have some chef that's going to say that. And all it is a French word that means everything is in its place. Basically, it's a long-winded way of saying be organized. Everything has to be prepped in some way, shape, or form. You're peeling off outer leaves, you're taking the skin off, you're cutting roots off, you're coring something. Everything's got to be prepped. Make sure you're neat and clean and organized while you're doing that. If you do, let's just keep it simple. You do a burger truck, so you're going to be prepping lettuce, tomatoes, onions. The other condiments are done for you, the mayonnaise, ketchup, mustard, and pickle. So the 3 things, tomatoes, onions, and lettuce, have to be prepped. And you're going to prep them ahead of time. But you don't put them all out on the counter. You do them one at a time so you don't cross-contaminate and so that you can stay neat and clean and organized. So you got to be organized when you do prep. Clean up after you do one product. Move on to the next product. Clean up after you've done it. Since space is at such a minimum on a food truck, you've got to be organized. You got to standardize your recipes and portioning. I have said this a million times. And yet, as long as I've been saying this on the podcast, and then in my coaching sessions, and in my books, we're talking the last 7 years, I still talk to people like I talked to somebody earlier this week. What's your portion for that? I don't know. A handful. Okay, I'm 6'3" and Melissa's 5'2". Her hands are tiny, mine are huge. Who do you want portioning out your food? If you're the guest, you want me because you get a bunch. If you're the food truck owner, you want Melissa because you get a little. Still both handfuls. But where's the profitability lie and where is the encouragement to become a repeat guest? Where is that portion? It ain't going to be a handful of any size. So you have to have specific measurements. You have to have job aids to help people remember what those measurements are. And you have to have examples when you do things by sight. Because I promise you, if you think that you are weighing out something by sight, like French fries, if you don't recalibrate yourself, you are doing it either way more than you intended or way less. And in either case, you're hurting one of two things, and both of them pertain to your business. One, you're hurting your bank account because you're being less profitable than you should be, or you're hurting your guest in the consistency, which means they don't want to come back as much because they don't know what they're getting. One day it may be huge, the next day it may be small. Standardize those recipes and your portions. You're allowed to pre-chop and pre-assemble stuff. You sell a whole bunch of buns, butter up some ahead of time. Just like we talked about, if you got a line of people in your burger truck, put some burgers down. You are allowed to look at the line and go, hey, you know what? I'm going to sell a bunch of chicken wings. I probably ought to drop some. You're allowed to do that. But you can also do it with pre-assembly. If you're a burger truck, go ahead and butter the buns if you toast them, because you know that somebody's going to be ordering it. You can think ahead. You're allowed to do that. If you do cut something in real time, you're allowed to do it ahead. You can pre-chop. 10 people in line and you're insistent upon, we're going to cut lettuce to order. Well, that's fine. It's crazy, but it's fine. So if you got 10 people in line, you might ought to cut up a little bit of lettuce because you know you're going to sell it. You're allowed to think ahead and pre-do stuff. You want to cross-utilize ingredients. I've said this many times. Do not have an ingredient on your food truck that's only used in one application. Now, that doesn't mean if you're a burger truck that you need to have 2 kinds of meat. What it means is the burger is used on a single, a double, it's used on a bacon one, it's used on different types of cheeses. So the meat is being used on different products to make sure everything has at least a secondary use on your food truck. Don't add a product to only go on one thing. You will either run out or you'll have a lot of waste. You want to label and day stamp everything. Everything has to be organized. We talked about organization earlier. As far as when you're doing prep, well, when you're done with prep, you got to date all that stuff. It goes into whatever container it goes into and gets put wherever it belongs. But there needs to be some type of date with a prep time, and then this is good through, some type of expiration. You take something out of its original container, you want to date it so that you know when to discard it if you don't use it all. It also helps with rotation. Everything's got to be labeled, especially when you remove it out of that original packaging. We use squeeze bottles for our ketchup and mustard, which means it's out of its original packaging. I don't like those flip tops with the diaphragms in them because you get the flip top everywhere. It gets all kinds of ketchup and mustard all over it. I hate those things. So I will screw the top off of it and put it into a squeeze bottle. And now I've got to label it ketchup and then date it so that I know when it should be discarded. Your prep station should have a specific setup. It shouldn't be the whim of whoever's working it for that day. Everything that's in that prep station should be labeled, it should be marked, and it should be set up the exact same way every single day. What that does is it helps you to notice when something is not in the right place. Does that mean you're out of it? Does that mean it wasn't prepped yet? What's going on? Why is this station not set up the way it's supposed to be set up? You got to remember that in a food truck, space is limited, and you know that. You probably bump into your employees all the time. The stations have to be simple, but they have to be organized and they have to be labeled so that they're done the exact same way day in and day out. Efficiency is the lifeblood of a successful food truck. If you're not efficient, the people aren't going to wait on you. They will get tired and they will leave your line, or if they did survive an order, if you don't get the food out quick enough to them because you're disorganized, they're not coming back. And you'll never know they're not coming back because you're disorganized. You probably haven't even paid attention to who you're waiting on. A well-prepped food truck is going to be fast and it's going to be efficient. And when it's fast and efficient, then the guests are going to come back frequently. It keeps them happy. And that's what drives your success, is happy guests and guests that are going to become raving fans of your business. Thank you for listening to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. Please take a moment to follow our podcast. And if you really like what we do, consider supporting us. There's going to be links in the description to make that happen. Every little bit does help keep us going. And until next time, you guys have a profitable day.